Stepping into his room was like stepping back through time. The decor and furniture was Edwardian. The atmosphere was hazy with blue tobacco smoke, and logs were crackling behind an antique fireguard. He gestured me into a scuffed leather armchair and settled in the one opposite. I stretched out my legs to allow my rain-soaked trouser bottoms to dry, and I stared at him. He exactly resembled the portraits by the best of his illustrators, Eric Parker. If you were to merge a photograph of a young George Sanders with one of a young Boris Karloff, you'd get the picture. There was a well-contoured brutality about the face, handsome, cultured, charismatic, but very, very dangerous. I could well understand how Mademoiselle Yvonne Cartier and all those other remarkable women had fallen under his spell. It was in his eyes especially. They were a strange, gleaming bluish-grey, like quicksilver, and missed nothing. I felt them rapidly assessing every detail of me, leaving me in less than a minute with the disconcerting notion that he already knew me better than I knew myself. Thunder rumbled and rain pattered against the window pane. "Cigarette?" he asked, proffering a silver case. I waved it away. "Those things will kill you." He gave a wry smile. I had, with that comment, acknowledged and accepted the limitations placed on this interview. The questions, specifically those pertaining to his longevity, that I was not permitted to ask. "Well then," he said, leaning back and striking a match, "where would you like to begin?" Audio recording had been prohibited, so I opened my notepad and clicked my ballpoint. We were going to do this the old-fashioned way. "How about the author who invented you?" Again, a slight upward curving of the lips. He put a hand to a decanter on the table beside him. I nodded. He poured 2 large measures of brandy and passed one to me. "Harry Blythe," he said. "Or Hal Meredith," I said, his pen name. "I chose him because he'd done me some small favour." "This was back in 1893, I said, conscious of how absurd it sounded. He steered around that particular query. "Harry was a jobbing writer. He'd done some newspaper work and had a few yarns published in the Penny Dreadfuls. I was in with Viscount Northcliffe." "Alfred Harmsworth," I put in, "Chief of Amalgamated Press." He grunted an affirmation, drew on his cigarette, and puffed out a cloud of blue smoke. "Harmsworth was keen to jump aboard the Sherlock Holmes bandwagon. Detectives were the big thing. The public was clamouring for more, so I encouraged him to ask Harry to create a new one. Harry came up with Gideon Barr." "Who?" "Exactly. I had to put him right, paid him a visit. 'Harry,' I said to him, 'my name is not Gideon Barr, my name is Sexton Blake, and this is what you're going to write.' Then I outlined my scheme." "Which was?" "Try the brandy," he said. "It's really very good." I did, and it was. Blake drew on his cigarette again and watched its smoke billow toward the high ceiling. "Mainly," he murmured, "I wanted my abilities exaggerated in order to disconcert my enemies. In essence, propaganda. Yes, I made a science of it. I was the first to do so. If you'll forgive the observation, that first story which appeared in the Halfpenny Marvel story paper was pretty dreadful." He quirked an eyebrow. "Bluntly said, but I don't disagree. The early tales were silly melodramas replete with mustachioed, twirling villains and utterly implausible coincidences. It was the style of the time. Nevertheless, they were inspired by real cases, and they served their purpose." I resisted the temptation to gulp at the brandy. I felt nervous, but I wanted a clear head. I said, "Why did Mr. Blythe sell the rights to the character to Harmsworth?" "Because I told him to do so. Even in those early days of my career, I was dealing with too many cases for a single writer to document. Also," he paused, reached for his glass, took a sip, put it down, and examined the tip of his cigarette. "Also, I was a qualified doctor with a sharp eye. Harry had a weak constitution and pushed himself too hard. I knew he wasn't going to be around for much longer." "He died of typhoid fever in 1898. "He did, poor fellow." By that point, Harmsworth was already distributing my case notes to other writers. In their hands, the Blake character gradually gained popularity. But, I hesitated and cleared my throat, but why that popularity? I mean, if you'll forgive the observation, the character was little different to all the other detectives crowding the pages of the story papers.